All right.
Oh, we're live.
So I'm Kyle Brown at Signal Store. We're hosting Sebastian Imlay from Infinyon to talk about Fluvio.
Yeah, so I renamed the talk from ingesting, transforming, and exporting data using Fluvio's WASM-powered smart modules to data wrangling using Fluvio's WASM-powered smart modules, because it fit on the slide better. I guess I've just been introduced, but you can find the code and this presentation at github.com/simulate/presentations. I just put it up, so it should be there. I've been working at Infinyon for about 2 years. Done a lot of different things, not as much WebAssembly, but these days getting into it a little bit more. I built their Python client, the Java client, Swift client, mostly all of their client libraries, including the one that compiles to browser WebAssembly, which is pretty cool. Overview here is that I'm going to tell you about Fluvio with like a few interactive, like me doing terminal demos, and then I'm going to show you a more extensive demo of using connectors and how we use smart modules. Fluvio is very similar to Apache Kafka. Here we go. It's very similar to Apache Kafka in that you have producers and consumer streams and topics. And so with Apache Kafka, you really need to use like the native client library that's mostly written in Java. And then, and so like with Fluvio, it's written in Rust, and a lot of the client libraries are actually wrapped Rust into the given runtime for the client you're using. So like if you want to use the Node.js library, it's actually just Rust compiled to your target operating system and then wrapped in and called from Node to the Rust using the CFFI. And then what I'd like to do eventually is have that actually be a WebAssembly blob that then like it's just a generic runtime, which would be pretty nice. But for now, it's like native compiled to the operating system itself. And so this is an interactive demo of using it. There we go. Yeah, bigger. Fluvio topic list. So I don't have any topics right now because I deleted them all for this. So I do create foobar, and so now I have a topic in my my client or my cluster. So now if I do Fluvio produce foobar on the top, and then on the bottom I do Fluvio consume foobar. On the top, I type in word like types, which is useless, foobar. It'll pop out on the bottom pretty seamlessly. And this is all hosted on Infinyon Cloud's, like the company's like hosting of it. So it's nice to use. So it's all like talking to AWS East, and that's why like there might be a mild lag, but there's not, which is pretty nice. So there was lag at home, which is nice. Anyway, you can do lots of different things. So like F, if I want to do like a file for I in where I want to like produce and send in 1,000 records, like on the top and the bottom, they're already all there. Like it's there instantly. And those are individual records. And the records themselves can be, I don't actually know the max size, but there's not really a hard limit. So so that's like the base use for using Fluvio. And then this is just a GIF of the actual like thing I just did, because easier. Anyway, so smart modules are basically a nice marketing term for a WebAssembly module or a WebAssembly blob. And so it's got nice entry points that we know how to call into appropriately, rather than having like function main where you just like run the thing. It's got like a special entry point for saying like this is a map or a reduce, or I mean a map or an aggregate or a filter map, etc. And so basically like you can use this on the consumer. You can also do it as a producer when you're doing it client side before you push it to the cluster, but it's easier to show when it's done via a consumer stream where you're like, all right, before I receive all these records, apply this function, this map to every single record coming in. And so like one example of this might be like to multiply the number by 2, or to capitalize everything, or to like, do some machine learning on your stream of, I don't know, index tickers and whatnot to make some kind of educated choice. And yeah, so you just like upload the smart module to Fluvio and then run it. And then another thing we did was we built what we call Smart Module Development Kit, which is just another, similar to Fluvio itself, binary it helps you like upload and build with the appropriate things, but it's really just kind of execing into cargo, and it's got got a nice cargo generate setup so that it gives you a nice smart module setup at first. And so and then the other thing we do is we support this thing called Fluvio Hub, which is kind of like a repository. It would be similar to like a package manager, except anyone can kind of use it. I'm hoping we eventually end up with some kind of like, you have a paid smart module that you like pay, like you get paid 1/1000 of a cent or something every time that someone uses it. It'd be kind of neat, but that is a business decision. So anyway, I'll show you how to do that. So we do SMDK. We do SMDK. I always forget this one because I just learned it. So we do SMDK generate. And you give it like a project, and this is kind of like how like Node.js npm init works. And we do like capitalize test. And so do you want it to be public? Like it's a pretty straightforward user experience console app that you specify like what you actually want to build. And so in our case, I wanted to show you capitalize test. So like capitalize test. So this is the actual smart module itself. And it's pretty simple. Like it's just like turning it into a string. And oh, that's a cool trick.
I didn't mean to do it.
Yeah, so this like in the example I mentioned, it multiplies it by 2. Like it turns the record into a string, and then it parses that as an I32, and then it multiplies that by 2. And so like in our case, what I wanted to do was capitalize. So like value was this dot 2 uppercase. And so now like this is the smart module I wanted to like show of like, we're deserializing it or turning it into a string because it's a binary payload. And then we want to make everything uppercase. So, and then we do SMDK build. This is, like I said, execing into cargo. It's compiling. Should take about 9 seconds. Fingers crossed. And then we do load -- WASM file target WASM release LPO WASM capitalized test.wasm. So now it's like in our Fluvio cluster. So if I do like Fluvio SM list for smart module list, it'll show the modules we have. And so like one of them is capitalized test. And so what I want to do is then produce to one topic, produce to the same topic I had in the previous demo, and then consume on the same topic. But I want to like use the smart module to apply to every record. So like on the top, we do Fluvio produce topic list. I forget what the one was. Yeah, produce foobar. So foobar, and then here we do Fluvio consume smart module. What did I name this? Capitalized test foobar. So now the records on the bottom should be capitalized, and the records on the top going in should not be capitalized, or they should be anything. So cap. This is capitalized. Yeah, and so like it's it's pretty straightforward. Like we have records coming in and records coming out that are all capitalized. And then this smart module is getting applied on the actual Fluvio cluster. It's not getting applied on this computer in front of me. So it's kind of like MapReduce clusters. You'd spin up the whole thing and then you'd give it a map and a reduce function and you'd run the whole thing. And my experience of that was you'd upload like 100 megabytes to AWS EMR and then like you'd get an error and you'd have a real problem. But
How large is the cluster?
this cluster, I don't actually know.
Sorry.
But this is very like the smart modules themselves are like it says 35 kilobytes, which is kind of nice. And then the other two here are for demo I'm going to do in a little bit. So yeah, that's kind of the simplest use case for a smart module. And yeah, there's the code I just showed you. And so the next thing I want to talk about is connectors. So a connector is like either going into or out of Fluvio. And so like we have a Kafka connector where you can like go take all your records from your Fluvio cluster into your Kafka cluster. I don't know why people want to do that, but we keep getting requests, so we have it. And then another case is like an HTTP source connector where you pull, a static website to see if it's changed, or like a dynamic resource to see if it's changed. Eventually, we'll have more streaming based on HTTP connectors. Yeah, so that's kind of it. And then it's basically wrapping, or it's written as a YAML blob, so it's like no code, low code kind of thing. And you can specify like how you're going to use the smart module, whether you do it before you send it to the cluster or not. And it nicely runs on Fluvio Cloud. And Fluvio Cloud is the Fluvio cluster that we're hosting that then you can like pay on some payment scheme. But yes, this is how we make money. So yeah. Anyway, so the demo I want to show you is like I want to like pull api.github.com on a repo for the stars on a given like project to see if it's updated. Then I want to play a smart module to see like which one of those things has changed, because GitHub doesn't really have a stream API for say their like number of stars on a repo or number of forks, this type of thing. So you have to like pull every 10 minutes to be like, I don't know, has something changed on this resource? And then I'm going to apply a smart module that's called an aggregate smart module that determines if it's actually changed or not. Because it's going to look at the last record, see if the count matches this one. And then on the other side of this, we're going to use a filter map to turn some JSON into some human readable stuff. And then we're going to shell out to Mac OS Say. And it will talk to you. So yeah. Anyway, so like I talked about YAMLs, like this is the YAML itself. Pretty straightforward. I guess I can show you the terminal. That doesn't wrap well. So this is the actual YAML. This GitHub token will expire in a few days. It only has read access to a couple of things. And then you specify your smart module. You usually specify it via a nice like GitHub Actions type of thing, but I discovered a bug today, which meant I had to do a workaround. And so, yeah, like this is a connector, and you can just use the CLI to create a connector. And so over here, I should have done everyone. Yeah, okay, so like Fluvio Cloud list, shouldn't have any connectors. I do Fluvio Cloud connector. If I make it smaller, how do I make this better? Fluvio Cloud connector create. This now, what that thing has kind of done is it's spun up or spinning up as we speak an actual like Docker container or pod in our Kubernetes cluster for my particular instance that goes to api.github.com/whatever and pulls it every, I forget how many seconds. every 1 second. And then right now it's not applying any transformation. So if I do Fluvio topic list, I should have a bunch of stuff in this GitHub stars topic. Consume GitHub stars. Yeah, there's a ton of JSON, and that's not what I want. Like, it's just going to continue doing it. And so like this is more JSON than I want to see or use on the consumer stream side of it. Like, it looks like an overwhelming amount of JSON because it is. And so that's kind of how you create a connector itself. And so now I'm going to tell you about the smart modules that I want to use for this demo. And so these are GitHub stars aggregate lib. What I like about these smart modules is how, like, this is the whole thing. It's from line 6 to 18. It's very small and concise, so it makes it pretty nice. And then I got some helper functions in here and some tests because it's always nice. But basically, what happens in this smart module is that it turns the record into a struct that I care about, and then it deserializes the JSON coming in from githubapi.com, and then it compares the current number of stars to, like, this current record to the previous record. Like, is there more stars now than there was last time? Or is there a different number of stars? And if there is, then we need to change our output. And so our output that we actually want is this GitHub stars struct. As seen here, it's very simple as opposed to what we had before, which was, I don't know, a kilobyte of JSON. And so this is like, 20 bytes of JSON, which is pretty nice. And then I got a couple of try from and to go to and from this struct to the Fluvio types and whatnot, so that it's simpler on the other side of things. And then the other side of this is the GitHub stars filter map smart module. Source lib. And this one's similarly like this, looks at the JSON, determines if the actual JSON has changed, i.e. star update. Is there a different number of stars than there was when you last polled? And then turns the JSON into something human readable, i.e. the Fluvio GitHub star count is now, and then, the number of stars. And yeah, so that's kind of like the overall like use of how we're going to set up a really simple pipeline of poll GitHub, see how many stars there are. If it's changed, tell me. If not, tell me not. And so it just like dumps that in constantly. So yeah, now because I've already like pre-compiled these things, I'm not going to do SMDK load or SMDK build. I'm just going to run the connector. So we do. Oh, I do need to change the actual connector though, because I disabled the transformation section. So this says use this smart module on the actual connector itself with some parameters, and it should be more like this, but there was a bug I discovered today. So
Is that a tabbing error? Do you need to tab that transform back?
I don't think so. No, I don't.
Okay, it's a parameter.
Yeah, it's a parameter into this. Yeah, so now if I do Fluvio cloud connector list and then delete this GitHub stars input, there's no longer connector, and then I got to recreate it, which was // there we go. And now Fluvio consume on the same topic, and we should see a much different record set. And now, yeah, so it says star update false, like there's no change. And now if we go to github.com, Infinyon, Fluvio, push the star button, it already says true. And so, yeah, that's kind of like the input to this topic, which is kind of nice. And on the other side of this, the filtering these and then mapping them into something like human readable, we then do it a similar way where we do Fluvio consume with a smart module of GitHub star filter map on the same topic, and then Well, once again, I need to go do the thing because it's not, nothing has changed. It's now 1533. And then I do it again, and now it's 1534, 1533. And you too could go do this. And then what did I do? Pipe while read line, do say dollars line, done. Oh, why didn't that work? Wasn't talk. It's not that one. GitHub stars. I need to disable the audio from this. Mute. There we go. I need somebody.
Fluvio GitHub star count is now 1,533. Fluvio GitHub star count is now 1,534. Fluvio GitHub star count is now 1,533.
It's so stupid.
Fluvio GitHub star
Okay, that's
count
enough. That's enough. Yeah, that's kind of it. That's the end case demo. And there's a GIF for what I just did. And then like future work. Ideally, we could use things like I want to say WebAssembly components. Was that the name of this? So that we could then like share the WebAssembly libraries more easily, and then I really like to make the WASM-WASI if it had network calls, which I think it just needs the WASM-WASI sockets was a
It'll be part
proposal.
of Fluvio too.
That's pretty sweet. Because then I could like bundle like I could compile the Fluvio client into WASM itself, and then I would link that into my Python, and it wouldn't like be as annoying. And then you could have a more cross-platform library, which would be really nice. So, yeah. Questions?
So, question. I might have missed it at the beginning. When you are issuing the Fluvio commands, I assume they're connecting to like your own namespace in Fluvio, right?
Yeah,
Like a configuration.
there is.
Okay.
There is. Yeah, so there's a bunch of different configurations, and so we have Fluvio profiles, and so like I have like 10 of them. It's like I've got my dev cluster that's like local to this machine, or like on the Linux box that's on the other side of the country or something like this. And yeah, so there's a configuration that has certs in it as well, so that it's TLS encrypted over the wire, this type of thing. And then if I do like Fluvio profile list, like you can see there's lots of them. Like Batman is the name of one of the profiles for like a test setup, and it's just all over the place. And then let's see if this works. Is it Infinyon.cloud?
I mean, the commands you were typing were Fluvio.
No, that's I don't remember. Oh yeah, so this is the actual this is our web UI that this is showing like real-time inbound traffic and whatnot for the demo that I just did, which is pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is it possible to use the Infinyon API in other languages than Rust?
Do you mind repeating that?
Yeah. So the question was, is it possible to use the Infinyon, the Fluvio API in anything other than Rust? And yes, it's right now it's kind of like a language by language type of thing. It's not really like a curl. Can't like curl it. It's got its own protocol that's written in Rust, but yeah. So we have client libraries in Java, Python, JavaScript for Node, JavaScript for browser, which is kind of what this thing is doing here to produce these graphs. So we've got a couple of third-party like open source libraries of someone wrote a Elixir library, someone wrote a Go library. So yeah.
Cool.
But like yeah, it's pretty much it's gonna wrap Rust for now. So eventually I'd like it to be like some kind of specification that you could use from Java or whatnot.
We have a question from
Yeah.
I'll just try to speak up so you don't have to. So I know that you are working with like consumers and producers. Are
Yes.
those Kafka consumers and producers, or can you just plug those into Kafka consumers and producers? How does that work?
So that would be a connector, be like a Kafka source or a Kafka sync connector.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that would like the topics. Yeah, so the I guess like a consumer is more of an action. So you're consuming a stream or consuming from a topic, and then you're producing to a topic. So that'd be more of an action. So there's not really like a consumer stream or producer stream. You're just doing one or the other. Yeah, and then there's connectors to and from Kafka. If you want to do like, dump everything from your Fluvio topic to your Kafka topic,
Cool. Question.
Yeah.
What other kinds of smart modules are there other than I saw there was aggregate? I think there was kind of a default one.
Yeah. I cannot remember all of them, so I'm gonna go look at our docs real quick.
Look it up myself too.
Yes, sorry. We have filter map, array map, which I think goes. These nice diagrams of record in, new record, new record, new record. So one record in, multiple records out.
I see. So that's sort of like what I used to hearing as called flat map.
Yes, I believe it is like on programming language terms, flat map. There was some argument of how to do this in a way that those who didn't necessarily study CS would understand, because array map turns one thing into many, but yes.
The notion of flat map is that you take one element and you make many, but you treat it like it's one string. So you're like, that is, you're flattening them into one thing.
Yeah.
But array as a one to many is probably a good analogy.
Yeah, and then there's like aggregate, which is a initial value or previous value to an accumulator, which I think is normally called like reduce
Or fold.
Yeah. Yeah, like if we were really formalists, we would have named them things like fold, right fold, left fold, these type of things. But I don't know Haskell well enough to keep track of all of them.
When everything's in order, correct? Like there's no.
Everything is in order. That I believe is a strict guarantee.
Because in systems where in order is not a guarantee, there's also even more fun jargon.
Yes, I was very worried about this, and I was like, how do I write unit tests if it's not in order? Yeah, that would be problematic, because then I wouldn't be able to match that things going in match things coming out. Yeah, and so then we have this other thing called Fluvio Hub, which is basically like a repository of smart modules and things like going to and from. I think Jolt is a Java library thing. It's a Java format. Yeah, we have like various inputs for it to say like, this is the kind of table it's going to and from. And yeah, so yeah.
We're also getting some questions from the audience. Here's one. Can you have more than one producer per stream? Is the sequence guaranteed?
Yes, you can have more than one producer in the stream. I don't know how sequence works when you have multiple producers, because yeah, you'd have two different things producing, and so I believe that yes, it is still very much guaranteed, to the best of my knowledge.
Okay, I got another one. Maybe. Yeah. Can aggregates run in parallel? If so, how do you control the scale and the degree of parallelism? You're getting some hard balls.
Oh, that one's hard. I don't know how to answer that question. Yeah, so like in this particular example, what was happening was the aggregate was running before it produced to the topic itself. And so if I had that happening, say like I spun up the connector twice, the HTTP connector twice, then it would definitely be, there would definitely be duplicates. Yeah. But on the consumer side of things, yeah, the smart module, not a great way to stop duplicates that way.
We've got several more. So what are your plans for helping people share and discover public smart modules? Did we have an audience plan? I don't know. That could have been a plan.
That is a question for my business people.
I can tell you what I would like you to say.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
you plan to use a registry, perhaps developed collaboratively with the Bytecode Alliance, since
That's a good
Infinyon-
answer.
Infinyon is part of the Bytecode Alliance, and that's work that's underway. So that would be a really cool way to share them.
That's true.
Okay. Anybody else in the room have I have more, but we can rotate between room and
Also,
online.
because of the timing, the food didn't get here before the event. It is now here and ready, so but we can also break for informal questions and dinner if anyone's hungry, whenever people want.
With the aggregate stuff, is there anything like kind of like a materialized view where you can just sort of almost like KSQLDB, where you can sort of as events are coming in, you can.
Not yet. That is a thing that I definitely want. Like, I'd also want the ability to like visualize like how like we need debugging tools. So debugging tools are going to be very important. We don't quite have great ways to visualize like your various pipelines. So like, I showed you one connector. Like you can have like dozens of connectors. You could go like, one of the things that I thought would be really cool would be to have a connector that would consume from topic A and produce topic B, and then the parameter to it would be a smart module, and then it would just like, you'd end up with a derived stream where we just like dump things constantly. And I think it'd be really neat. So, but once you build stuff like that, once you enable stuff like that, then you end up with another problem of how do you debug it, and that's one of the things that we've ran into when we've done large demos.
Was that another question on the stream? Yeah.
Yeah, we had the key.
Yeah. So how are smart modules chained together?
Yeah, so I forget how that works. Let's see, it's we have, you can chain them together and specify them as multiple transforms. The normal way you'd use a lot of these things would be in a connector, and you'd specify it as as I proceed to like look through the docs myself, you'd specify it with multiple connectors itself. Of you have a use of Infinyon/Jolt, Infinyon/JSON SQL with all these parameters, so you can like add these all in. And so order in this case matters on the YAML itself. Yeah, and then WASM time bundles them all together and calls process on each one incrementally.
Yeah, I was gonna ask which runtime you use.
Yes, we use
you said
WASM
that
time.
earlier. Cool. Yeah. A lot of us in the room here use WASM time.
Yeah. Yeah, right now to build smart modules, you need to write it in Rust. We do have plans to eventually like expand this. The actual Rust itself, like I mentioned, where I put the code. Yeah, so like this thing on line 5, if you're unfamiliar with Rust, this is called a procedural macro. It turns this one function into a whole bunch of stuff. And it's kind of cool. Like it's bundling it into like a pseudo FFI type function. I looked it up the other day. It was really, really neat to see where it like expands to. It expands to like 50 lines of Rust. So yeah.
So there's another one. Do you have it queued up?
Oh yeah.
This is a fun one, which maybe we can just dialogue. Someone asked, can Fluvio speak with wasmCloud?
I don't know what that would mean.
It isn't me.
I don't know why I wouldn't be able to speak with wasmCloud.
Yeah, so I'm not going to talk about wasmCloud too much. The application platform, they have messaging stuff. So I think it would just be, Fluvio is a streaming data platform, right?
Mhm.
I don't see why not.
Yes.
And I guess it could happen with a connector. It could be Kafka or it could be HTTP.
Yeah.
Right? I saw you had inbound and outbound Kafka too.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. Where's the connector? Yeah, we have an inbound Kafka and an outbound Kafka. They're really the same code base. Like, there's no reason why they wouldn't be the same. But yeah, one of those two doesn't support SSL quite yet. I need to fix it. So yeah.
Oh, or you can do MQTT.
Yeah.
Cool.
Though this is an inbound connector.
Right.
Yeah. So Oh, I see. You have an MQTT. We could go subscribe to your MQTT client or
Yeah.
broker, and yeah, okay, that would
I
work.
think it would be totally based on use case. But
Yes.
Like the answer is a resounding yes. Just depends on how you want to do it.
And like, yeah, so I authored a number of the connectors themselves, and like, it's really easy to write your own. At first, I was like, why am I doing this? We should have like everyone's gonna need to have their own. And then I was like, well, we want to have a catalog of how to like, have your connectors going to and from thing. And then to have like a low code or no code type of description language to set it up and run it.
So are your connectors all open source on GitHub?
Yes. We want to eventually have proprietary ones where we charge people for money. But no, for now it's all open source.
I was going to kind of extend that. They kind of clarified a little bit and said maybe that they were, thanks, probably should have asked about, can it connect with NATs? So if you, it seems like you all publish connectors. Can people plug in their own connectors if they write their own?
We don't quite support third-party connectors
Okay.
yet. If there's like a will, there's a way, but right now we don't. I worry about like the security aspects of it because like running someone else's WebAssembly is one thing. Like you're not really like you can choose if it supports networking or not, or file system access. A connector is actually just a Docker container right now. Like we publish them to Docker Hub because it's easy. Just running someone else's Docker container is like a liability. So that's why I've pushed back on this type of thing, because I don't know how to certify that they're not going to try to escape the Docker containers, because it's not really a secure runtime. But we do want to have this type of thing. So
Yeah.
It's like a great use case for WASI and components.
Yeah, there's that, but also maybe somebody could open source it, and then you could have some verified process.
Yeah,
on
that
your
was
GitHub.
Well, they can contribute it into a repo that you control it, right?
Yeah, so it is. They are all open source. It is Fluvio connector is just the repo, and then we got
This
some.
gives you some control over the process of writing connectors and verifying that they're safe.
Yeah, and so we have various, like some of these aren't actually like official, like, and some of them are broken, but like they did exist or do somewhat exist, and yeah, like the DynamoDB connector, for example, like I've had it working at one point or another, and then yeah, so there's lots of different options. So if you really want to make your own connector, like on our side of things, it's really creating an official Docker Hub, like are they called images? The actual like listing, the registry listing on Docker Hub is the only part that we would really like have to do. But yeah,
We got another one. I'm gonna ask Brooks to say it out loud.
What is it? Oh yeah, sure. Or you can repeat it. Up to you. Is there any sort of access control for self-hosted Fluvio, allowing access to a certain topic for multiple clients, but having private ones for some others?
I don't know what the state of our ACL is. So we definitely have an access control list. Like the feature has been partly built. I don't know how well tested it is, but it's there. So yes, I wouldn't say that it's fully fleshed out and ready, but that has been on the roadmap.
Do we have any other questions? Room people?
Why don't we head on downstairs and you can continue the chat over the tacos and pizza.
All right. Thank you, online people. It was fun hanging out. Those
Yeah.
were some great questions.
Yeah, it's great.
All right.